Welcome to the Bar Exam Toolbox podcast. Today, we're excited to welcome Chris Chapman, CEO of AccessLex, to the podcast to talk about a new bar prep product they've released and a study they've conducted recently on who is most likely to pass the bar. Today, your Bar Exam Toolbox host is Alison Monahan, and typically I'm with Lee Burgess. We're here to demystify the bar exam experience so you can study effectively, stay sane, and hopefully pass and move on with your life. Together, we're the co-creators of the Law School Toolbox, the Bar Exam Toolbox, and the career-related website Career Dicta. I also run the Girls Guide to Law School. If you enjoy the show, please leave a review on your favorite listening app and check out our sister podcast, the Law School Toolbox podcast. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can always reach us via the contact form on barexamtoolbox.com, and we would love to hear from you. And with that, let's get started. Welcome back to the Bar Exam Toolbox podcast. Today, we're excited to welcome Chris Chapman, CEO of AccessLex, to the podcast to talk about their new bar prep product and a study they've conducted on who's likely to pass the bar. Welcome, Chris.
Welcome. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's definitely my pleasure. To kick things off, would you mind giving us just a quick overview of AccessLex and of your own career path so people have a little bit of context here?
Sure, I'd be delighted. So AccessLex Institute is now in its 39th year as a national nonprofit focused on advancing legal education for the betterment of the aspiring professionals who go to law school and graduate from law school. We focus on everything from admission to law school through admission to the bar. We're a membership organization which is comprised of all of the American Bar Association law schools that are state affiliated or nonprofit. That totals about 194 these days. And while we have a formal mission statement that I could read and talk about, I think really our tagline best encapsulates what we're doing here. And that's empowering the next generation of lawyers. And we seek to achieve that through actions that leverage the resources we have, which create measurable change and positively impact our various focus areas, namely to increase access to legal education for underrepresented minorities and socioeconomic groups, and increase the affordability and value of the JD for all. We work towards these goals in various discrete yet overlapping ways, and that includes through applied research, through grant programs, through public policy and issue advocacy, through convenings, professional development and partnerships, public education and communications, and the creation and distribution of educational and informational products and services. From my end, I've been CEO of AccessLex Institute for more than 14 years. Prior to that, my career was spent in various roles where the worlds of education, finance, law, regulation, public policy, and the provision of quality nonprofit products and services intersected on a regular basis. During and immediately following law school, I jumped into the public policy work on both the municipal and federal level, helping to shape policy and legislation to assist those most in need. I practiced law for a short time at a large law firm, focusing on public finance, higher education, and the nonprofit tax areas. But most of my career prior to AccessLex was spent as a leader in two large multi-billion-dollar nonprofit entities focused on higher education finance, including 7 years as a CEO immediately prior to my tenure at AccessLex. While I would like to say I had a master plan to create just the right mixture of experiences for my current position, there certainly was not.
I hear that a lot.
Yeah. All I can say about it is that I always look to use the skills and resources I acquired along the way in the best way I could. And that's something that's not so different from how we approach the world at AccessLex.
Great. Well, tell me a little bit about this report you've recently done, which I found pretty interesting, called Approaching the Bar, an analysis of post-graduation bar exam study habits. What was the study about, and what did you learn?
Well, the study's interesting, and it's just one component of the various, studies we do across the spectrum of things we're interested in, including bar success. But this study is the first that we know of anyway, and we've looked to provide a time diary analysis of the bar exam preparation period to understand how candidates spend and structure their time in the weeks leading up to the exam. We had study participants report their time in 30-minute increments for 7 weeks leading up to the July 17 bar exam. And we found some interesting things, but some obvious things too. But again, at AccessLex, what we like to do with all of our work is try to quantify kind of what is known as the conventional wisdom or the common sense of things, so that it becomes actionable data to improve the way people study, improve the way people approach various things, including the bar exam. And what we found here is, on the obvious front, is the more time spent studying, the higher likelihood of bar passage.
I guess that's not super shocking.
No, and probably not super shocking either. Although maybe kind of in my college days, I may have disagreed, but those who study more hours in the morning and do multiple sessions per day also are more likely to pass than those who do more studying in the evening and fewer sessions per day. But the one interesting thing that found is there are diminishing returns to studying more than 10 hours per day. The likelihood of bar passage begins to level off at that point. And further, those who study more than 10 hours per day are more likely to report running out of time on their exam sections and feeling that they studied the wrong materials. And again, back in the obvious category, working during the bar prep period is negatively associated with bar passage. The more hours working, the lower the odds of bar passage, and things like that. And again, this was a very interesting report, and we'll probably do follow-on in the future on it. But these and other things like it really, as an entity with a large research component, help us understand what works, what doesn't with respect to bar passage, and allow us to apply it to our work with Helix Bar Review.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that in a minute. I thought that the 10-hour finding was interesting. Was there anything in there that particularly surprised you? Would you say that? I'm not sure I would say that was surprising exactly, but I think it definitely challenged for me sort of the conventional wisdom people sometimes have of just more study is better. Was there anything else in there that was kind of surprising to you?
No, not really. I think that, again, while you can, in almost in hindsight, I can say, well, yeah, of course it's not surprising. There's only so much you can study in a day before you stop gaining from it. There's also a risk, I think, amongst many in type A types who are overrepresented in law school, who think that they can, study long and hard without regard to the efficiency of how they study. And sometimes it's just the number of hours you put in. The number of hours you put in will produce a result, and that's not true in many areas, and it certainly isn't true in the bar exam. And as we'll probably talk about a little later, the key to passing the bar exam is not only studying enough, but studying in the right way and the right material for the right amount of time. And again, so it's very interesting to see how all these factors apply against a diverse population, and it's certainly grounds for further study.
Definitely. I thought it was a super interesting study. I'm absolutely agree with you. I think it's definitely a quality over quantity type of thing that we always encourage. We definitely hear from a number of students who say, I've never failed anything in my life. Like, I don't understand how this happened. I was studying 14 hours a day. And, the answer is really they overstudied and they weren't focusing on the right material, which is super unfortunate.
I agree.
All right. Well, let's move on now to talk about this Helix Bar Review, which is your new bar prep product. Tell me a little bit about this and what was the motivation for creating it? I mean, this is already a pretty crowded space, right?
It is, but it's crowded with legacy players who primarily were created decades ago in a world that was very different than today. And while there's a number of players in the market, the market share of the top players is very high, creating almost an oligopoly of the market, which allows two things to happen. One, pricing can be established at an oligarchic rate, which means you can charge much more than the marginal cost to deliver the product. And two, there's not a lot of not a lot of pressure to get better. So that's, as we looked out at the market and looked out at what our role could be to further our mission, that was the basic pretext for us looking into this space. Then we looked into what it really costs to deliver a full service product and validated that our expectations about the profit margins of commercial vendors was accurate, and that we could do better, both in terms of price, much better, and in terms of quality, much better as well. As an aside, I will say that it had nothing to do with the fact that I had very little money when I was graduated from law school and felt had to spend my last penny buying a commercial bar prep course, and was not able to do the supplemental MBE course because I truly went to negative $20 in my checking account at that point. So,
the memories.
Yes. So there's no bitterness there, of course. But,
right. No, not that you're even remembering that 20 plus or whatever years later.
No, I remember. It was fun going to the ATM and seeing I had negative $20 in my account.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Yeah, I mean, I didn't actually use any of the big kind of companies when I graduated because I just sort of looked at them and thought, I'm not sure it's worth the money, and I'm not sure that I need this. But that's a really hard choice to make for a lot of people. I think there's just so much pressure to kind of do it one way. So, yeah, I thought it was really interesting that you guys kind of came in and have done this in a different way that I think in a lot of ways, comports with at least my understanding of learning science and what works for people. So tell me a little bit more about how this was done and what type of people did you have working on it?
Well, so we built this from the ground up. So truly from the ground up. And we did it, as basically as a membership organization of all of the law schools. We have pretty good access to experts in every area of law. People who know us from all of our years of service in other areas, they know we do things with quality. So we started with going to the law schools. We did focus groups and surveys with more than 2,500 students, faculty, and administrators from over 100 law schools. And we, focused on what are the issues surrounding bar exam prep, from the financial investment to their wish list for design. And as we built Helix, we shared what we were thinking about. We asked what they thought, what they liked, what they didn't, and we listened. Beyond those things, in the building of this, we've contracted with over 100 law professors and other experts to craft the material, craft the substance, craft the questions, craft the grading grids, craft all of the work that goes into to be the backbone of this material. We have a team of 10 in-house attorney editors who are professional editors who then take that work and make sure it's all coherent with, when you mix 100 law professors work together, it has to have one voice eventually. And then also in-house, we have veterans from both the bar preparation industry and also from NCBE, including the former MBE program director at NCBE, who was in charge of their question drafting. We hired, and she created all of our custom MBE questions and the program design more broadly. Also, we have a team of veteran academic success and support professionals who are handling, our ongoing review, grading, management, and all other aspects of making sure the program itself and the ancillary parts of it, including our past classes and our other supplemental activities, are all aligned both with our program and with the latest learning science. And we have a state-of-the-art LMS partner, and obviously we hired instructional design. So the nice thing about building here at AccessLex is, and as a non-commercial entity, is this is our mission. And so our top focus was quality, and we did not have to worry about cutting corners anywhere, which is a good place to be.
Right. No, that's a great place to be. Well, I signed up for the sneak peek, which covers some torts topics, and I will say it's got some pretty interesting elements in it. So tell me a little bit more about kind of how this is structured and what you guys are trying to do and what you're incorporating in terms of active learning.
Sure. Well, again, what you saw in the sneak peek and what you'll see, is a really good slice of what the program in full looks like. And if nothing else, there's, the full program is a little more robust than even the sneak peek showed. But the core concept behind the program is really, it's an integrated learning approach. And that integrated learning approach is designed, on the advice of experts in learning science. And what it does is it's integrated content with active learning to help you efficiently use your study time to effectively prepare for the bar exam. And what that means is rather than spend 2 hours reading about torts, then spend another hour reviewing, and then spend some time on practice questions, and then watch a 2-hour long lecture, our program is structured in such a way it's everything sliced into smaller parts. So you'll read about intentional torts, then you'll do some what we call building block questions, which are really black letter law type review questions. Then you'll watch a video, then you'll do a unit test, and then you'll move on to defenses to intentional torts, and so on and so forth. And so by chunking it out into smaller parts, we expect we'll be able to keep the learner's attention better, and two, we believe that, again, the science behind it is that type of repetition, doing different activities helps people learn better and recall it better later. Even our videos, which are, in my mind, the videos are kind of a very definition of passive learning. They're designed to be active in regard to, at least to act as a bridge between active pieces. They're short, they're 5 to 7 minutes. So it's perhaps you could zone out, but you're less likely to zone out because they're very targeted and crisp. And they again, you just learned about that very specific subtopic. You're seeing it, kind of hearing it verbally, and you're either seeing somebody talk to it with various graphics behind them, or you're seeing one of our scripted videos, which is more animated type videos, and then you move on to the next part. So I think again, we're designed to do that, designed to really make the program active. You get knowledge points along the way for our activities, which kind of goes towards your course completion, and the active components give you more knowledge points than the passive components. And so look, a lot of it depends upon who you are and how you like to learn, but we determined in our study and our design that this was the best way.
Yeah, there were a couple of specific things that I thought were really great and that I'm not sure I've necessarily seen a lot of places. One was that you let people sort of rank their, confidence level of their knowledge on certain things, which is something we also do with our students when they're doing MBE questions, is we have them do a grid. And one of the questions on that grid is, how confident did you feel? Because if you don't feel confident and you got it right, you're probably guessing. Mm-hmm. And if you do feel confident and you got it wrong, that's a great learning opportunity to figure out, whoa, what happened here? So I thought that was really great. And I also like the sort of gamification that you had, a lot of different kind of games that people could do and get points. And I feel like that would probably be motivating to a lot of people in today's world.
Yes. Yeah. And that's really fun. And again, it's another example of how we can turn, what is, a quasi-passive learning activity, which is looking at flashcards, to a more active style activity, and just give yourself a little break. I have to confess, in all of the testing we're doing, I've spent probably more time just playing the games for fun, just to see how I can do, than I've done anything else. But it's we try to be different, but everything we do has a reason, and the gamification of that is certainly designed to again, like everything, help people pass the bar and spend their time wisely.
Yeah, I have to admit, I did a couple of the games for a while just to see how I was doing, even though I'll admit I didn't actually read the entire outline. I was like, oh, intentional torts. I could probably get some of these right. I was like, oh, this is kind of fun.
Yeah.
All right. Well, before we move on to a different topic, if students are considering what bar prep products to use, I mean, there's this whole universe. I think there's been more and more stuff coming online, lots of different approaches. What do you think they should be considering when they're making this decision?
Well, I think the first thing they should consider is, does it have everything you need to pass the bar exam? There again, as you mentioned, there are lots of people who provide bar preparation out there, but there's only a few that provide what I would say the full panoply of information and breadth of material and support material needed to pass the bar. A reprint of old questions from NCBE is, that's great, but it's not sufficient. And so I think that's really important. I think the learning platform itself, how easily can you navigate along the learning platform? How flexible it is for you. We have a program that's structured. If you want to do it another way, you can do it your own way. You can easily go to and pick and choose along the modules because every person is an individual. Our structured program is the way we believe it works for the broad swath of people, but everybody has a different way of learning, and they know themselves better than we necessarily do. But also is has thought been given to the learning science? Has a program thought about what the best way to learn is, and does that align with how it works for you? And finally, is the price rational for the quality and service provided? And look, I mentioned earlier today where we believe that most of the larger programs, the price is not rational for the quality and service provided. We've priced our product at a price that is that will be break even at some point in the future, but we're far way off from that right now. It's well below the cost, but we can do that because it's our mission. But one thing I do want to mention, kind of that's the flip side of this, is what are the red herrings that others might tell you to look at? Pass rates is the first one. Look, this is our first year, so we don't have pass rates, but pass rates in large part aren't what they seem to be. Pass rates for any provider, they only reflect the mix of students who use the program, even if virtuous calculations are used. It's just simply, if you have one entity who only has students who come from schools with historic 80% pass rate, and another entity that has schools with a historic 70% pass rate, the pass rates are really, they're apples and oranges. And so I think the real question everybody needs to ask themselves when they think about pass rates is, what's my likelihood of passing as an individual? The bar exam isn't some random chance event where everybody has an equal chance of winning. Your pass rate is really related only to your personal commitment to study and your ability to perform when it's go time. And that really gets to, do you have all the material you need? Is it presented in a way that you're able to efficiently get through it, learn it, and retain it? And that's, I think, when pass rates come up, what people need to really consider. And also people need to be wary of all the discount games and the like. Buy now, get this price. Buy later, get this price. I used to talk about used car dealers. That we aren't used car dealers, but with the advent of CarMax and Carvana and the like, I can't even do that anymore. So, I think, look, I mean, we're transparent. We have one price. That price gets you everything. There are no add-ons. There are no subtractions, and regardless of all all the movement around and this discount, that discount, this special that your friend heard that you can call and get. We haven't found one lower than our price yet. So at least of the big ones. So
Yeah. No, I 100% agree with you on the pass rate issue. People often ask us when they're thinking about tutoring, well, what are your pass rates? It's like, that is not I can't give you a meaningful answer to that. We work with an incredibly diverse set of people, from someone who went to Stanford and has never failed anything, but got the stomach flu, to someone who went to an unaccredited school and has failed multiple times. I'm like, those are not the same people. Like, whether one of those people passed has nothing to say about what you are going to pass. Like, let's talk about where you are and what your situation looks like, and then we can kind of make a reasonable assessment. But yeah, it's just sort of funny. Well, what is the pass rates? Like, that's not really a relevant question.
exactly. And the nice thing about the work we do too is because we aren't just a bar review company. We do lots of work, with academic support and others during the in-school period to help them and help the students get themselves positioned to be able to pass come May of the third year. And,
Right.
and that's as important to our mission as the back end piece.
Well, maybe we should do another podcast on that later. Let's shift gears a little bit before we wind up. I want to talk to you about the future of the bar exam, which is obviously speculative at this point, but I think there's a lot of motion kind of in this space about what's going to come next. What do you see coming down the pipe in the next, say, 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, well, I think the bar exam is going to change in some meaningful ways. The NCBE Next Gen project is going forward. It's going to happen, and that's going to really, for NCBE and really for anything of this is going to dramatically alter at least its approach in terms of the substance. There'll probably be fewer subjects in the testing areas. There's going to be a shift to greater emphasis on skills. What that looks like, and in the context of that is, remains to be seen. But I think NCBE expects, and everybody seems to expect, that this approach will be, largely accepted, at least amongst many, going forward. I also think the alternative pathways to the bar will expand, although I think this may be a little more modest than is the attention being given to it now. Oregon's moving in that direction, and I think what would be a fairly middle of the road type approach that balances a lot of the interests most states would have. But over time, I think that will be just a fraction of Oregon admittees going forward, and other states maybe follow. But there's as you're well aware, very strong resistance of the state and local bar to.
I believe that's fair to
Yes.
say. And California has had that option for a long time, but it's not very heavily
Right.
used. So it will be interesting, definitely, to see. And how do you think your bar prep products like Helix and things or other ones, how are people going to adapt, if the exam changes drastically?
Well, look, depending on what happens, I mean, we'll be ready for the changes, and we'll certainly, we're following the NCBE changes, and we'll definitely be ready for those. And any states that want to adapt, will be there. And in fact, in many states where California included, we're helping them understand kind of how their bar might work and what impacts of what changes might happen in the future. So we'll be ready. But whatever, and we'll be able, I can say that with confidence because we are the only entity in the space that like actually has both the reason, the resources, and resolve to keep doing this. It's literally our mission to assist these aspiring attorneys to pass the bar in the most efficient and affordable manner. We've already invested almost $10 million in development of these programs and have the ability to continually invest to meet the needs of this next generation of lawyers. And we have the resolve. Like, we've committed to this venture. We're here for the long term. We're the largest charity focused on legal education. We're structured to operate in perpetuity. And, if not us, who?
Right. Well, this has been super interesting, and I'm definitely glad that I was able to check out Helix. I'm going to, possibly send some of our students to take a look at it too, because I think it has a lot going for it. We're about out of time here. Any final thoughts on this topic?
The only thing I would say is for your listeners and your students is look, we're, again, as a charity, it's a great place to be because we're in the position where we're right now in the process of a giveaway of 500 courses on April 1 for 2Ls who go on and complete 10% of our sneak peek or 10% of our free MPRE. I'd encourage everybody to sign up for that. Also, we have lots of free resources at Helix and AccessLex, including a set of 1L outlines, which is essentially our core concepts from our UBE bar review, which is a really nice black letter law review for 1L students and anyone else who wants to get a head start on reviewing these things. I think we're a pretty broad resource, and I thank you for having us.
Yeah, my pleasure. Well, if people want to find out more about AccessLex or Helix, how can they do that?
I would encourage helixbarreview.org or accesslex.org. You can get to either site from the other. They both have lots of information. Helix is Helix-centric. AccessLex covers the broad swath of our other materials. They can be found, and we have a multitude of tools, which I could probably spend, a half hour talking about those.
Well, unfortunately, we are out of time now, but thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Well, I want to take a second to remind our listeners that you can check out our blog at barexamtoolbox.com, which is full of helpful tips to help you prepare and hopefully stay sane as you study for the bar exam. You can also find information on our website about our courses, tools, and one-on-one tutoring programs to support you as you study for the UBE or California bar exam. If you enjoyed this episode of the Bar Exam Toolbox podcast, please take a second to leave a review or rating on your favorite listening app. We would really appreciate it. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss anything. If you're still in law school, you might also like to check out our popular Law School Toolbox podcast as well. If you have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to reach out to Lee or Alison at lee@barexamtoolbox.com or allison@barexamtoolbox.com, or you can always contact us via our website contact form at barexamtoolbox.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk soon.